Hi everyone, Jenny Boymal here from the Proven Group, and I am here with Ken Rosebery. Ken, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to introduce you. You have lots of titles and accolades behind you. I think most recently you've been the managing director of the Cheesecake Shop, which is such a well-known and loved Australian brand. Before that, you're with Fast Away Couriers, which is now Aramat, and you've had long-standing history in franchising and a lot of impact in the franchising space. You're now an advisor, an investor, a consultant in franchising, and I'm so excited to have you here. We've had some interesting conversations along our time, and I know you've got so much value to add. So I'm excited.
Oh, welcome.
Can
Thank you,
I
Jenny, for
ask?
your compliments. I accepted with graciously.
Thank you. Can I ask you, we're living in a funny world. There's a lot of change, a lot of things going on. What do you see as the most important leadership skills and characteristics that people in franchising need moving into the future?
Oh gosh, I think they're the same characteristics that any business needs, not just franchising. Franchising has some unique challenges, but largely because of the dispersed and distributed nature of franchising, that it has, an even greater need for good communication and with franchisees. But I think that many of the same qualities of a good leader in any business can come through in franchising, and I think it's hard to pinpoint that. My personal view is that it's about authenticity, and that good leaders are authentic, and beyond that, it's really just about communicating effectively, and and working well with a team of people that are around, surround you with good people, and respect them and work well with them and push them ahead, and I think the rest sort of follows.
So true. Someone, I can't remember who, but some amazing person said to me, surround yourself with great people and then get out of their way and let them do what they're best at. So I think it's interesting.
Sometimes that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's true. So that's true at certain stages with people, that they get to a point where they know you and you know them, and the strategy is clear. Then it is time to get out of their way and make sure they're coordinating well, with others. But otherwise, yeah, let them have their head, and is a good way to do it. Others need coaching and need to be kept a little bit closer until I guess the leader feels ready and they feel ready to take on more.
So true,
That's
so
true.
true.
Yeah.
And you've had an amazing career in franchising and a career before that, obviously, as well. What's inspired you to be you in your career?
I think my parents, I imagine. Who knows? Where do we come from and what makes us who we are? Um, your history does, I suppose, and your personality. I've always been a very energetic and conscientious person, and whatever I've done, I've tackled it with enthusiasm and focus, in a sense, and always wanted to do the best that I could do with things. And I think the rest follows from that to some extent. Um,
Have there been any amazing leaders that have crossed your path?
oh gosh, there's so many good leaders that are out there. It's not for me to try and name. I think I'm sure you could name plenty that inspire their teams, but usually, if you find a high performing organisation, you'll find usually a good quality leader at the top of that, because that leader is inspiring the people within that organisation to make it a high performing organisation. So the two go hand in hand to some degree. Yeah.
Yeah, very much agree with you. There
Mm.
are lots of amazing people out there, and yeah, I agree. Looking at the organisations can certainly give us those indications.
Mm.
Ken, I know
That's
you've
true.
got a couple of really kind of core passions about franchising and what you see franchising being all about. My question for you is, what do you think are the most important things that franchisees need to be successful in franchising? And I think I'll open the floor to you on that one.
Okay, well, Jenny, that's a huge question.
Mm.
There are lots of things that need to go right for a franchisee to be successful. I think one of the things I'm particularly passionate about is that franchising at its very core is a business model or system or format that enables a franchisee to run a profitable business. Now, not every franchisee is profitable for various reasons, but fundamentally the franchisor should have primary responsibility to make sure that they are offering up a system that is fundamentally profitable for most franchisees most of the time. And I think, I think when you hear that, or those people that hear that would, or anyone new to the business would probably nod their head going, well, yes, of course. That would make complete sense. Why isn't that obvious? And indeed, most franchisors promise or imply to prospective franchisees that, join my system and you'll make a lot of money. Even if they don't specifically say it in those words, that's the implication. And so I think it's incredibly important that if a franchisor is to take that primary responsibility seriously, then of course they've got to know what the profitability of their franchisees is. And not just annually what it is 18 months after the event. They need to know what the profitability of their franchisees are month to month and be able to be in a position to manage that profitability or certainly contributing a great deal to making sure that the business model and that their franchisees in the vast majority are in fact profitable. Now, what many people would find shocking would be how few franchisors actually have that data. How few franchisors actually know month to month whether their franchisees are in fact profitable. Most talk in vague terms about, we've looked at a sample of P&Ls and this is our business model, and we think that the cost of goods or the labour cost should be about this. And so they've got this kind of vague idea that the business is profitable. And I suppose to the extent that people haven't gone bankrupt or handed the franchise back to the franchisor is not a bad sign. But to me, I think that falls a long way short of what a franchisor should be doing. In today's world, with the capabilities that we have now in terms of, cloud-based computing and data and so forth, a franchisor really needs to be much more on the ball in terms of knowing profitability. So there are in fact very few franchisors that have that type of timely, accurate data on their franchisee performance. So I think that's important, and I think that was something that was very important at the Cheesecake Shop. We knew month to month every franchisee's performance in terms of its profitability. We were able to compare and benchmark a franchisee's performance, and we were that much better capable of managing things like pricing and other issues in the business to ensure that there is an acceptable level of profitability across the franchise system. And indeed, we didn't talk to prospective franchisees with vague promises about you should be profitable. We actually showed them in our disclosure document what was the historical profitability of all of our franchisees in the last financial year, so that people can make their own judgments about the profitability of the business. And I think I think that's been very important. And going forward, I'm doing consulting work now, working with franchisors to implement the sort of systems that are needed to, in fact, have monthly, accurate, timely profit measurement of their franchisees, which is a little more complicated than what you'd think. Oh, that should be easy. It's actually quite complicated to do it. So I'm working with some franchisors to achieve that in their own systems.
That's amazing. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, this then also then ties into the culture of the organisation and the trust that's been built up. Because I know in a lot of systems, there's this kind of sometimes there's this kind of franchisor franchisee kind of tension, whereas ultimately everyone's on the same team trying to achieve the same outcomes. And yeah, I think it's amazing. The more franchisors who can do this kind of work and can really get clear numbers and clear indication of how franchisees can be profitable. I mean, that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's as I said, the devil's in the detail. You'd be surprised. Of course, franchisees don't necessarily want to disclose their profitability or are not capable of disclosing their profitability. And tied up with that is all sorts of stuff to do with compliance with the Tax Act and compliance with Fair Work regulations and minimum pays and these sorts of things. And, within franchising, there is always a tension that exists to some extent, between the franchisors and franchisees. Having accurate payroll and financial data also means that there is a little less wiggle room for franchisees and more control exerted by the franchisor. Now, whilst that control is ultimately for the benefit of franchisees, it's also something that is naturally resisted by franchisees if you are implementing that as a change within the franchise system. So that if franchisees have been used to doing their own thing with their financial monitoring and payroll and tax and so forth, they, of course, don't like it when you say to them, well, no, it's got to be done like this. And it's got to be done by this time and by the 10th day of the month, and this is the standard chart of accounts we're going to use and so forth. And it constrains them to some degree, and there's a lot of pushback. And so there's a classic kind of change management challenge is faced when bringing in a system like this. Now, once it's in, new franchisees that come in know no different and simply go, oh, well, that's the way they do it in here, not a problem. And it's no different to take the example of the cheesecake shop. It's no different to where if we say there's supposed to be 12 cherries on top of a Black Forest cake, then that's exactly what we expect in every store every time. And we have systems in place to ensure that cakes comply in terms of taste and presentation with what our standards are. And it needs to be no different in terms of financial management and, in particular, payroll, which has been a big issue, as you know, over the last few years, where there's been a real history of not just franchise systems, but corporate Australia, with some of the largest companies in the land being non-compliant in terms of their obligations to their employees. So, all of that needs to be comes into the mix.
Ken, I love your passion. I love what you're bringing to franchising, because I think, a lot of organisations want to go down this path, but it's almost like, where do you begin and where do you end? And how do you get from A to B? So I think a lot of people will benefit from your experience and what you've done and helping them do that in their business.
I hope so. They can they can reach out to me, and I'll that's a plug for a little bit of consulting work at the moment.
No worries.
I don't want too much work, though. I'm quite enjoying after 20 years as a CEO as a franchisor, having a little bit of a change of pace.
The running, the swimming, the bike riding.
Well, I've always done that. Now I can just do a little bit more of it, and I think my wife can't believe that I could, in fact, do any more of it. But I love staying active, and which is true. And do a run, then do an ocean swim with the surf club people, and love cycling. So I mix it up every day. I've got something on.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and I think your insights are so valuable to the sector, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. So thank you.
You're welcome, Jenny.